How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for today. Initially when I reached out to you, I was like, this is more of a selfish thing because I really want to up my reading,
Mm-hmm.
at least book-wise. And I saw you had a pretty good year last year, so I wanted to ask a few questions, and I'm sure other people, would love some insight on like, okay, what you personally did to enhance your books per month.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if that's the way you calculate it, but before we get started with the questions, go ahead and introduce yourself. Where are you
Um,
from? Where are you currently at? What do you currently do for work?
yeah, you can hear me fine?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm also like using my phone in my hand, so I might be a little shaky as we go on. But yeah, hi, my name is Briget Arndell. I'm from California. I grew up in Pomona. I went to school in Montclair and Santa Barbara, spent some time in New York. And I've been back in California for about 4 years now, doing environmental work. So right now I'm managing environmental services for the city of Arcadia. And it's great. I literally just started last month, so I'm still learning a lot. But it's a really fun opportunity to apply my passion for the environment and protecting it with managing local mun municipal utilities and stuff like that in a way that can really engage with residents and the public. So, yeah, it's really exciting and I really like it. So, that's what I do.
That's awesome. We could put a pin on that conversation because I could tell you're passionate about what you do, and I would love to kind of get more insight on that. I always love to speak to people when they're passionate about something, just to kind of have a better perspective. And especially, I don't know much about environmental studies or the field as a whole, so that'll be a cool topic for
Yeah.
next time. But I digress, right? I do
Yeah,
see
I
a
could talk about
few
that
people.
all day.
Yeah, I see a few people shouting you out. We have somebody else from Montclair High. I'm going to
What?
introduce myself because I see a lot of people as well that I don't recognize. My name's Elvin Flores. I also grew up in Pomona. I don't know if you knew that, Bridget.
No, I
Also went to Montclair
didn't.
High
What?
School.
P-Town?
I also I also went to UC Santa Barbara, and I'm in the neck of the woods right now in Laverne, so Arcadia is not too far from me. So
Hmm.
small world. But again, everybody, I put this live together so we could ask our lovely guest today, Bridget, on how she was able to enhance her reading goal. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a little bit more on the selfish side because I also want to read more books. So I have a couple questions prepared for Bridget. I do want to start with, do you even like reading? I know personally I don't, but I know it's good for me, but I'll let you share.
Yeah, I definitely like to read. I enjoy getting lost in a book for pleasure. Um, and then I really like learning too, so I think reading for that purpose is great as well. But, I'm not always in the mood for it, so I think that's a different conversation, but I do like it.
No, and yeah, you're getting ahead of me because that is a point that I want to bring up. But yeah, one of the things that I found is education wise, it's more beneficial for, an individual, especially if you want to kind of embark in personal growth. And I have a couple mentors that always say, if you want to keep a secret, write a book.
Mm.
Because for some reason we don't do it, and I'm at fault of it too. My next question for you, Bridget, is: can you pinpoint a time when you actually lost yourself in a read? So you did say you like to do it, um, and then give us the title of the book. How long did you read for that day that you just lost yourself in a read?
Hmm. I will say, like, thinking back about when I first started reading, it was really hard for me to sit still and be able to focus because I'm such a, or I was such a active kid and I love to play outside. So I feel like that shows up for me sometimes when I'm reading now. Um, and just, yeah, so I'll get into that a little bit later, but I will say that I didn't always like to read. It was definitely something I had to develop over time. Um, and I think it was the first time that I got lost in a book for fun, not where I was like reading something for school or for assignment or something. It actually wasn't until my 20s, like mid 20s. I was going through a tough period and I decided I would just try to read as a way to distract myself from what I was going through. And yo, it was such a good way to escape, I guess, my problems. Like I would just like just read and get lost in a story. And for me, the first book that did that was The Alchemist by
Mm,
Paulo Coelho. I thought it had a great message and the storytelling was very vivid. I realized that I had this ability to, and I'm sure a lot of people do, but you can really envision the story that's being told and like picture yourself there, kind of like a movie like that you're watching, but you're in it. So I really enjoyed that experience, and so I felt like maybe that author was safe for me, and so I read like seven of his books that same year because I just that first experience was so good that I was like, oh, the rest of his books will probably have a similar experience for me. And I think that's an important piece of advice that I have as well is finding an author that you really like their storytelling technique that you vibe with is really important, especially when you're starting back out or starting for the first time.
yeah. And so if you don't mind sharing, like with The Alchemist, for instance, was there like a time frame where you went like 2 hours just nonstop? You couldn't put the book down? What was the time frame?
So I'm not much of a long-term reader, I'm gonna be honest. I think it taps back into me just being a very energetic kid, you know, like um I can go for like an hour when I'm in it, which is great, but I think more than an hour, sometimes I just my mind starts racing about other things and it's still something I'm working on. And it took me a while to get to that hour mark for sure.
Yeah, this is exactly why I wanted to have this conversation because this is all encouraging stuff. Number one, you said you didn't, you know, really genuinely start reading, for your own personal pleasure until your 20s. Because,
Mm-hmm.
going through undergrad, going through grad school, it's a lot of mandatory reading that a lot of the times we could all agree that it's not the funnest thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's encouraging because I'm not the only one that's going through this journey and wanting to read more for themselves. And I appreciate, you sharing that. And it's also encouraging that, that time frame of an hour that's doable, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, right? When I think of somebody getting lost in a read, and I've heard other people say it, they can grab a book and not put it down for like 2, 3 hours, and then in my mind, I'm just intimidated by it because I'm like I can't even sit still for like 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
real.
appreciate you sharing that.
And yeah, I think it's so
Um,
important to be honest with yourself about that, right? It's like there's no point in setting unrealistic expectations. Like I'm still reaching for the 2 to 3 hour reading mark, you know? And that's okay. Like we have a lifetime to figure things out and go at our own pace, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I love that. Thank you for that. But that time does lead me to my next question. Do you schedule your reading time or is it random? Do you just like have a book on a coffee table and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna pick it up? Or, being that you work, 9 to 5 or whatever your time frame is, do you have to plan to get some reading done?
Hmm. I mean, for me, in my experience, everything in life has to be a little planned out, you know, like because of my job schedule and my workout schedule or my plans that I have with family and friends. Like everything kind of needs to be like, I need to make time for everything. And I think reading is included in that. And it takes time to recognize when you have the brain power to focus and read, like I think that varies per person, like whether you're a morning person or a night owl or whatever the case. You have to figure that out for yourself. But for me, I started keeping books by my bedside so that right when I wake up, I can read something, and it's not always like a full book or anything like that. Sometimes it's just like one page or a chapter. I also have this daily stoic book where I just read. It's literally like a page a day. And that helps too because as soon as I wake up, I'm getting my mind in that pattern of reading and focusing,
Mhm.
which I think that's really big to consider if you're trying to get back into reading or get started, is recognizing it's a lot like working out. You have to exercise this muscle and build it up over time because really that's what you're doing. Like you're training your brain to focus on a story or on a book or whatever the case is. So think of it like that.
That's such a great example. Um, Follow-up question on that. So when you jumped into reading again, did
Mm-hmm.
you start off small, like you were doing like a page a day, or did you start off with like 10 minutes? Like, what was your structure like for those that are
Yeah.
more structure oriented?
So, I use my time in between things.
Mm.
So when I first got started again reading, I was actually taking public transportation every day. So I would use my time on the train or on the bus to read because I'm like, this is technically downtime, and I could be reading. So that's how I started doing it. And it was a game changer because now, like, every time I get on any public transportation, I kind of want to just read. But another way to consider that now that I live in LA and I'm not doing that as much is audiobooks. So I listen to
Okay.
different audiobooks when I'm driving or when I'm doing a task like washing dishes or cleaning or something. It's a really great way to give my brain something to do when I'm doing a bit of mindless activities. So I definitely want to encourage you to consider audiobooks as well because you're still consuming the content, it's just in a different way. And that can help your brain learn to focus too.
I love that. Yeah, it seems like you're very efficient with your time, which is commendable because yeah, no. And thank you for that stigma because I was always under the impression, personally, right? If you're gonna read a book, you gotta sit down, open it up, really focus on it. But like you mentioned right now, anything that doesn't require much mental effort, put on a audiobook. And
Mhm.
off of that, what do you use to listen to your audiobooks?
So I use Libby, which is an app that's connected to the library networks, public libraries. So I have a
Okay.
e-card from the LA Public Library, and then it just gives me access to all the ebooks that they have on file. So I've read or listened to over the past couple years, I've probably listened to like close to 20 audiobooks, which is really great because I had that similar feeling in the beginning. I was like, well, do audiobooks count? And then eventually I was like, yes, they count. They're still books. I'm still listening. I'm still absorbing this content and this information. I'm just doing it in a different way that's more applicable to my lifestyle. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think if you're trying to get back into reading or really any habit, you have to just let go of any stigmas or, preconceived notions of what you think it looks like and do what works for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, us as a human race, we're constantly evolving. Who's to say what's reading and what's not? You're still
Mm-hmm.
consuming that information, as you said. Very
Yeah.
well put.
Thank
Um,
you.
okay. My next question. So I've been following your journey through Instagram. Um, seeing the amount of books you read in the prior years, where did the willingness to read that many books come from? Was it a personal challenge or was it, something you did for yourself to personally grow?
Hmm. I think it was a combination of things happening in my life, like one, going through a hardship and not really knowing how to handle it, and then noticing how much time I was spending staring at screens. Whether it was my phone, on social media, or on my work computer, I just realized like I'm spending a lot of time staring into screens and I just don't want to. So then this idea of getting back into reading came to me and I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. I love to learn and getting lost in different stories and stuff like that. So that's really how it came to be for me. And in the first year, I only read 3.5 books. Like it was really tough at first. And that first year was me just figuring out what kind of stories did I like, like how long of a book could I really like realistically get through and stuff. So it was just a little trial and error that first year. But then at the end of the year, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna double it. And I committed to that. And then the third year, I added audiobooks in there. And I've essentially just been doubling the number every year, which has been great. Really cool because I'm just learning all kinds of different things. As I talk to more people about it too, people give me recommendations and just open my mind to different things. And then something I started last year, I did my first book club and I felt
Okay.
a lot of hesitation. Like I was self-conscious about joining a book club because I was like, who wants to hear what I have to say about, this book or whatever? And then it ended up being really fun because, this group of people read the same piece of material, but we all got different things out of it. And that really helped me understand just like, I feel like humanity a little bit more. That sounds cheesy, but really like 7 different people read the same book but got different stories out of it or like different messages resonated with them and we all got to talk about it in that space. So that was a really cool experience too. So if you ever consider that, I would definitely recommend it. It's a good experience to connect and bond and kind of just like get over your own fears that you might have about your own reading skills and stuff.
You see, this is why I love having these conversations because there's so much information to
Hmm.
consume. And I appreciate your vulnerability, but I feel like you need to give yourself some more credit because it's all, things that you've applied for yourself. And I wouldn't say anything is cheesy. Like this is stuff that's very meaningful. And who knows, out of the 6 people listening to us right now, and me sharing this information, somebody's going to find value in it. So give yourself some more credit. Um,
Okay.
tell us, how many books did you read last year?
What?
How many
How many
books did
books?
you read last year? Audiobooks included. Yeah.
20. Yeah, it was 20 books. And I was just really proud of myself. I've consumed 4 books already this year, two
Oh wow.
audio and two like physical. So I'm on a good start right now. Um, so yeah, it's going well. It's exciting.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It seems like you've applied yourself really well because you started 3.5 one year and now you're up to
Hmm.
20. And it seems like you're on pace to reading more and consuming more than that.
Yeah,
My
right.
final
It's a
question
muscle. You gotta
before I
build
open it.
it.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. I love that. Thank you for that insight. My last question before I open it up to the audience here is, do you recommend any books?
Yeah, I feel like it depends on what you like, right? So I want to start it off with that is kind of what I to retouching on something I said earlier, which is it's going to be a trial and error period for yourself. So give yourself grace as you find
Mhm.
out what works for you. It could be physical books, it could be audiobooks, it could be Kindle books, the ones you read on the screens. So experiment and find out, what you like. You could like drama or romance or sci-fi or self-help. There's just a huge array of books to choose from. There's also so many unique authors out there. I've found as I've like gotten more into reading, authors that I feel have like a familiarity, whether it's their upbringing or their background or their experiences, tell a story that really resonates with me and like touches on things maybe I've never talked about, but it could be kind of healing to see the story or hear the story. So before I recommend any of the books that I've liked, I just wanted to say that because I think we're all so different and unique in our experiences. So different things are going to resonate. So don't be afraid to try things. And if it doesn't work out, like that's normal. That's a part of life. Like not everything is for you and that's okay. So um that's what I have to say to start. But I would say that like my top three over the past couple of years. First, like I've always been a science nerd, always, and I still am. So Jurassic Park really hit for me. Like not only the movie, like watching it as a kid, but as an adult, reading the two books that are out there that the movies are based on was just so fun, and I felt like it was a really good way to get my feet wet, so to speak, when I started reading again, because it was something where I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I was getting all these details and like cool additions to what I already thought I knew. And then yeah, so Jurassic Park was like a really good read, and I feel like I'll probably reread those books throughout my lifetime. So that's the one recommendation that I have that I feel like could be inspo for you to think about other movies maybe you watched as a kid that there's books on that you could potentially get into. Um, then there's Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. It's like this futuristic sci-fi book that was written like 20 years ago, and she's essentially describing what she thinks the future will look like. And there's so many
Mhm.
similarities to how we're living right now. And as an environmentalist, like she covers a lot of things that just hit for me. So yeah, so it was just like really interesting. And it's a strong female character, which also I vibe with really well, even in movies. So I really like that one. And she has a lot of different books that are really good. Um, and then uh, my other book recommendation is called For Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts. And it's like a much more modern text, and it incorporates identity and social justice, and it's just really powerful. And it's one of those books that, again, I think I'll read throughout my lifetime. But it's very empowering and, yeah, just beautifully written. So, yeah. So I wanted to recommend a combination of like fun, fantasy, as well as like kind of self-help, realistic as well. So those are my recommendations.
I love how you said you resonated with all of them. So yeah, I think you got to find your niche, is what I'm hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of
Mm-hmm.
go from there. But